In this next video, we're going to go through the group exercise in Chapter 2, group exercise number 1, the Route 24. In the manual it says individual, but it really is a group exercise. And so let's go ahead and go through that. If we look at the exercise here, what we're going to do first is we're going to create a new file called Route 24. So I'm going to go back here, create a new file, just do File, New. We're going to do No Wizard. If you don't get this option, that might be because this was checked. We're going to hit OK to that. For the seed file, it's going to be a 2D seed file. And so we're going to go on out to our seeds at MoDOT here. We're going to go to where our seed location is, which is under CAD Standards, Seed Files, Design English, and about 2/3 of the way down is the iProject 2D Power GEOPAK. Typically all geometry stuff is stored in a 2D file. So we're going to go ahead and open that up. We're going to do it as read only. For the name, we're just going to call it Route24.dgn. And typically in a project-wise setup, you type it once and then you copy it down to the other field. And what I like to do on the description is add in 2D. And so I'm going to go ahead and create this. One thing some people like to do is check to make sure their data folder is correct, and this is pointing to data 2, but let's just make sure it's pointing to the right data 2 location. And I'm going to go up and look. We're under Design, and Randolph, Chapter 2, Data 2, that's good. So that is fine, and we're going to go ahead and hit OK to that. To create this new file, we're going to check in our old file. And the next thing it wants us to do in step 2 is we're going to check our COGO preferences. To do that, we're going to just right click and hold, select user preferences. And what we want to check is really the COGO preferences. And under the COGO preferences, you can define a path to the Data2 folder with this, or if you leave it blank like it is, it will use the active path of the open DGN file, and that's pointing to Data2. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to leave that blank and hit OK to those two dialogues. If we go back to the exercise, we're going to go on down, and what we're going to do next is we're going to create a coordinate geometry or a GPK file. And to do that, we're just going to go again back to Microstation / Power GEOPAK. We're going to go to our native tools here, and we're going to click on the old horizontal geometry or COGO icon. And the GPK that we want to create is one called 011. So we're going to go down to the job number, going to type in 011. For the initial operator code, we're going to type in CU or your initials if you like. CU is for class user. And we're going to hit OK to that to create that new GPK file. Now if it doesn't exist, which makes sense, it'll say, hey, do you wish to create this? And we're going to say yes to that. And so once that's open, I'm going to go ahead and just, you can close it or minimize it. I'm going to go ahead and close it. And if we ever create some items in Power GEOPAK that need stationing and tick marks, and to get those stationing tick marks, you've got to apply a MoDOT baseline proposed feature definition or a MoDOT baseline temporary baseline, or you can do an existing baseline. All those apply stationing and tick marks. And so if you set an element with those feature definitions, they will export out to a GPK automatically and then get pushed through the DNC manager to plot the stationing and tick marks. Okay? And so we just now have a GPK for that to happen. Alright, now we are down at the picture in the manual here, and this is the alignment that we're going to store. In the manual, it looks like it's going south to north, but really it's rotated. This alignment should go west to east. Okay, and so what a lot of people do is they pull this manual out of their manual and just leave it sitting next to them. So when they store this thing, they have a good picture of what they're trying to store. And so I just did the same thing. I pulled it out of the manual. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to create the tangent elements of this alignment. And so what we're going to do is we're going to set our feature definition, make sure it's geometry scratch, and we're going to set it as the active feature definition. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Right now my feature definition is set to no feature definition, but we're going to set it to geometry scratch. So I'm going to go down to design, I'm going to go down to design standards, I'm going to go to geometry and select geometry scratch. Now to apply that to our tools, we need to toggle this little icon on right there, which is use active feature definition. Okay, so let's look back at the manual again. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the line between points, and we're going to use Civil AccuDraw to place that exactly at x equals 4,000, y equals 2,500, and that's going to be the start of our line. Once we get done with that, we're going to use again Civil AccuDraw to draw a line at a direction and distance. Okay, and so the direction is going to be this bearing right here, and the distance is going to be 450, and then we'll data point to accept that line. So let's go ahead and try to do that real quick here. Again, I'm going to go to my Civil AccuDraw, I'm going to toggle it on. I'm going to do a XY option first because the X and Y is given to us in that diagram. And so I'm going to go over and go to my line between points. It's under my Civil Tools, Horizontal Geometry. It's the third row down, first icon. So I click on that. You can see when I'm moving around on the screen, my X and Y are very small. So what you need to do, and this is kind of an important step, we're going to type in that X value of 4,000, and we're going to hit the Enter key to lock it in. And what you want to do is you want to zoom out until you see that 4,000, and there it is right there. Okay, it's important to do that so you can see. Once you lock it in, you want to zoom out and move your cursor around until you see it locked in. Now what we want to do is we're going to type in that Y value of 2,500. So we're going to type in 2,500. We're going to hit Enter. Again, as soon as you lock it in, you want to move around and make sure that that cursor is locked in. Okay. Once it's locked in, we're ready to place the start of that line by just left clicking, and you can see we're starting to place that line. Now we're going to switch our mode in Civil AccuDraw to distance and direction. Okay. Now the biggest thing with distance, this Civil AccuDraw is you have to enter what is the focus of the tool is. Right now you can see in Civil AccuDraw it's focused on distance, and so we have a distance of 450, so we're going to type in 450, we're going to lock it in, and it's very important that you move your mouse to make sure it is truly locked in. Now you can see it is locked in, but it's very small. We were zoomed out very far, so I'm going to zoom in and keep zooming in until I actually see the 450, and you can see now it's when I zoom in, it's a lot easier to tell that it's locked in because the length on my length right there is spelled out 450. Now we're in the direction field, and what we're going to do is we're going to type in the bearing into that direction field. And so the direction that we want to type in is that northeasterly direction of north 59. I'm going to put a colon, and then it's 24, and then it's east. So north N59 colon 24 east. Now I'm going to enter that in and move my cursor, and when I move my cursor you can see it's locked in on that bearing. Once it's completely locked in, we're going to go ahead and left click to place that line. And so that is the first tangent of this alignment. Okay, so we're going to go back to the instructions, and we're going to place the second tangent line starting on step 13. We got the X and Y value, we've got the distance and direction, and we can place that tangent line. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that now. So we're going to go again back to Civil AccuDraw. We're going to go back to the X and Y mode. We're still in the line between points tool, which is great. And we're going to type in for our X, we're going to type in 5,192.19. I'm going to lock it in. Move your cursor around, it should be locked in. Zoom out if you have to. And so that's locked in good. For our Y, we're going to type in 2519.20 and lock that in. Again, move your cursor around, and that coordinate should be locked in like mine is there. So that's the start point of our line. So we're going to place it, And now we're going to try to place that tangent, and now we're going to go to a distance and direction because that's what's given to us. And so again, look at the focus in the AccuDraw tool. It's in the distance field, and this time the distance 360, so we're going to enter that in and lock it. You can see that it's locked in on my screen here. The direction on the map or on the alignment, it says southeast, but what you have to do is go in the direction in which the line is going. So we're going to reverse that. We're going to go northwest. So we're going to type in north 62 degrees colon 28 minutes, and then we just have to put a west in there so that we're going northwest. We're going to lock that in, and as soon as I lock it in, I move my cursor, and sure enough, it's locked in on the screen, and I'm going to place that line out there. Okay, so we got our two tangents out there, and now what we're going to do is we're going to try to place this tangent between the first curve PI and the second curve PI. And to do that, we're going to use a little bit different mode. We're going to use the direction mode, because I have the direction from this PI to that PI, and then I also have it from the third PI down to the second PI. And so we're going to use the direction mode, and it kind of states that in the instructions here. In step 15, it talks about the direction mode for Civil AccuDraw, and then we're going to use the line between points. And then once those are all set up, ready to go, we're going to use the two bearings to place that tangent line. So let's go ahead and try that real quick. So we're going to go to the direction. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to AccuSnap to the end of that line, and I'm going to go ahead and start it there. And what I'm going to do now is I got a direction going, and my first direction, I'm going to type in a south 54 degrees colon 36 minutes, and then it's going to be an east, southeast. So I'm going to lock that in. Once it's locked in, you should have this here. Then I'm going to, oh actually hold on here, I got to back up, sorry. I didn't notice what was going on here. It's trying to place a line already, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to back off that again. I'm going to go to my direction again. I'm going to snap to make sure my line tool is going. I'm going to snap to the end of that line, or try to at least. Oh, I'm on the perpendicular snap. Let's go to the key point snap, that one there. And I'm going to snap to the end of it, and I'm going to start my line right there. So you can see the line is starting there, and what I want to do is go a certain direction down. Again, it's going to be that southeast direction. So we're going to type in that south 54 again, colon 36, and that's going to be east. South 54, 36, east, and I'm going to lock that in. When I lock it in, you can see that bearing's locked in. Now what I need to do is, since I'm doing a direction, I need to enter the other direction, and to do that you got to hit the O key, and then it's going to ask, okay, what is the other origin point? And you're going to come over here and you're going to AccuSnap to the end of that line, and once you do that, it gives you a second compass. And with that second compass, what we need to do is put in that second direction. And so I'm going to change my location of my focus in my Civil AccuDraw by hitting the Tab key until I'm in that field right there. And I need to type in another bearing, and the alignment has it as northeast, but what we're going to do is reverse that. We're going to go south, and it's going to be 45 degrees colon 32 minutes, and it's going to be west. So we're going southwest from that origin point. I'm going to lock that in, and when I lock it in, you can see that point's not moving anymore. That's the location I want. That's the PI of the second curve. I'm just going to accept that location, and there's my tangent line. Now to place my last tangent line, it's just a matter of, and in the instructions say this, all you have to do is use the line between points and basically just AccuSnap to the end points and place that last tangent. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn off Civil AccuDraw. I don't really need that anymore. I'm going to AccuSnap there. I'm going to AccuSnap there. And so there are all my tangents for my alignment. Alright, now what we need to do now is we need to start putting in our curves, our circular curves. And the first one has a radius of 243 and some change there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy that so I can use that to paste it into my field. And so we're just going to use the simple arc. Nope, it didn't like copying it to my to my clipboard, so I'll just type it in then. But we're going to use the simple arc option. So I'm going to go back to Power GEOPAK. I'm going to go over to my horizontal tools. I'm going to go to the simple arc tool. It's in the fourth row, fifth icon over. And it says locate first element. I'll locate the first one, locate the second one. Now it's going to ask me for a radius. Again, you can pull it out of the manual. Again, it was on step number 27, or you can just pull it off the chart or the alignment chart on page 237. But it's 243.2987 on the alignment. And so I'm going to lock that in. There's my arc. I'm going to accept that radius, and I'm going to trim both back. So there's our first arc. We need to do the same thing for the second and third. They have different radius values for each, so you need to look into the manual for those. So I'm going to identify the first line. I'm going to identify the second line. Again, for this radius of the second one, it needs to be 142.2416. So I'm going to lock that in. I'm going to accept. I'm going to trim both back. The third arc, again, I'm going to select the two tangents to define the tangents. The radius of this one is 147.0171. I'm going to lock that in, and I'm going to accept it, and then trim both back. So there's our alignment. And right now it's just a bunch of individual pieces. I can hover over them, and you can see they're all not connected together, and so that's what our next step is going to be in this exercise. And that is starting on step number 32, where we complex the elements together. And at this point in time, we're going to switch it to a MoDOT baseline proposed. And again, with this feature definition, and where the MoDOT baseline proposed is under drafting standards, plan of alignments, and there's the MoDOT baseline proposed. And again, with this one, it will draw the alignment, and it will add the stationing and tick marks. And so I'm going to do this at a 50 scale because I think 100 is too big. So I'm going to set it to 50. And on this one, all we have to do is come over and click on this icon right here, complex by elements. I'm going to give it a name called Route 24. I'm going to type in R Route 24. I'm going to enter that. And then as far as the method, I'm going to use automatic. I'm going to come down, and again the stationing is going from left to right, so I'm going to come all the way over and make sure that that arrow is pointing to the right. I'm going to identify the first element. It goes out and selects them all, and I'm going to go ahead and accept it. And when I accept it, it wants to store it into a GPK. And remember, at the very beginning of this exercise, we created an 011 GPK, so we're going to use that one and hit OK to it, and there's our stationing and tick marks. Again, what it does is it exports it out to a GPK and then pushes it through the DNC manager. Okay. Now we need to set the beginning station. Now you might say, hey, it already has a beginning station. Well, any element that you create, it automatically starts with a 0 + 0 0, but you can set a beginning station or a start station, and we're going to use this icon right here. And the start station that we're going to use that we want to type in is 10 + 12.6. And so after you click on that icon, start station, all you have to do is click on the alignment, tell it where to start, which is typically at the beginning of the alignment, and the start station again is going to be 10 + 12.6. We're going to enter that in. As soon as you enter it in, you zoom into the beginning, that POT should say 10 + 12.6. Alright, now what we need to do next is, it says to update the server copy, but before we do that, what I like everyone to do typically is hit your F4 key, and let's create a report of this, and bringing up the heads up tools, and I'm going to slide over to the report, horizontal geometry report, and take a look at what the alignment says in our geometry report. This is the default report for on this computer, but you can click on any of these other reports if you like them, and if you really like a different report, you can always right click up here and set as your default for geometry. Okay, so that looks good, everything looks good, and so we can go ahead and close down the report. Oh, one other thing about the report, if you don't like a certain station value that's showing or too many decimal places, you can always change that information in the format options above here. Okay. And again, one other thing, depending on what's installed in your machine, if you right click, you might have some options to export out to. Some people have export to PDF, some to OneNotes, Microsoft Excel, but just be aware that you have those options. Also, I believe you can do a file and do a print and save it off as a PDF as well. So go ahead and close that down. Now what we're going to do is just do in this exercise or in the MoDOT setup, it automatically saves, and so you don't have to do the last step, which is update the server copy. So that's all there was to this exercise. The next video is going to deal with laying out some more alignments. First a Road 1 alignment, and then later on a Route 63 alignment.